Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for hanging in there with me and seeing this struggle together. It's been, a nightmare. And now losing Asar Thompson. If you haven't watched, I dropped the podcast earlier today. Asar Thompson is out for the year with a blood clot, and Isaiah Stewart with a hamstring. So he will not be. Those two guys will not be playing. Two of our best defenders, if not our two best defenders, they are not going to be playing. And also we just lack players, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we were hanging in there. Cade was on fire. He hit 7 of his first 10 shots, and then he missed 10 in a row. So that, he came back and he still had a decent game, but it was still, we just didn't have anybody else. We started Stanley Amude, and we started Toussaint, however you say his last name, but it was two guys that were undrafted in the NBA and played in the G League this year, and it was a second start for Amude and his first start for Umawa, and they played fine, but we're playing. We look down the list of guys that we played. We got like 3 NBA players that played for us tonight. 3 real guys that probably would be maybe 5 that could possibly even be in a rotation on any other team. And so I don't know. Monty said the guys looked like they felt sorry for themselves. I think they looked like they were stunned. They didn't know what to do. I mean, they just faced reality. So Monty tried to act tough and said, well, we can't feel sorry for ourselves, but and they can't feel sorry for themselves, but still it's just real tough. It's hard to do that. So we didn't have Asar. Stu is out. Fontecchio, who's been one of our best players, and his toe is injured, and so he's not playing. And Taj Gibson, he played 1 game, played 11 minutes, and he pulled his hamstring. And then again, Quentin Grimes. So we have like 8 guys, I think, that could be players. And some people are saying, well, how do you expect to come back next year with those 8 guys, which are Cade, Ivy, Asar, Duran, Fontecchio, Stu, Grimes, and Sasser, and you expect to win when you only won 12 games all year? Well, number one, they haven't played together hardly at all. Hardly ever have those guys been healthy, or Monty hasn't played them. So we haven't really got to see it. Grimes for all intent and purposes, has not played, and Fontecchio has done great when he's played. But we've never really seen those 8 guys play together for a consistent run. And we still, even with those 8 guys, we are short. We do not have enough NBA players to, we've had games where, again, we've started Asar and Duran and Cade and Ivy, and we've done well, and then our bench comes in, and then we lose the lead. And so I think that there is hope for next year, and I think if we keep those guys, but still we need to add a top draft pick, which looking more and more guaranteed that we'll finish in the bottom 2, I think, with all these injuries. And I think that we've got to make trades or sign for 2 quality players on top of those 8 guys I talked about. So some of those guys might not even get to play, and then we also need to get maybe another role player here or there. But we got to hit on the draft pick, hopefully. But still, it's going to be hard because the draft pick, you're not going to be able to count on. There's not just these players who are just incredible in the draft. But anyway, it's just been a struggle. Everything it was turned out bad this year for as far as injuries and what Monty's done earlier. But I can't criticize Monty too much lately for things that he's done or hasn't done. There was not much choice. But anyway, watching the game tonight, we tied the NBA record for the most players played. I'm sure you heard it if you listened to the broadcast. 30 players have played for the Pistons this year. Buddy Boeheim was number 30 for us. He tied the record for us with the Houston Rockets from a while back. They played 30 different players. So we might need more players. We might break the record. So who knows? But it's just hard. It's hard to watch. We've had some fun times. There's been some good times, and I still hope. It was fun when Cade was cooking and made 7 out of 10 shots. It still is. It's still bothersome for me. Nemhard, he goes into the game. He's not a great player, but he's physical. He's aggressive, and he knows It doesn't matter if he fouls out. He picks up Cade full court. So I have guys that criticize Cade. And there's guys on the podcast that says, well, Cade loses games. Cade can't be good because he loses. Well, here's Cade coming up the court. Every game they pound the crap out of him. Nemhard picked him up full court, and then they get him over half court, and then they trap him, and they're real physical, and they don't call fouls. And I just would like to see us do that to Halliburton. I just like to see us like retaliate like they do in hockey. If somebody cheap shots your player, I mean, he just constantly was just had a hand on him, pushed him, bumped him, pushed him, bumped him, and grabbed him. And then, it's just, they weren't blatant, but it just is nonstop. And Cade just handles it, but it's just hard. Monty mentioned it, that how physical they are with Cade. And it's like every game, all game. And when you don't have, the greatest team, they do that. And then whatever reason, teams get away with doing it for Cade. So, yeah, I hope that Fontecchio, I haven't heard what his prognosis is, or Grimes. Nobody's released anything saying that they're day to day or they're going to be reevaluated in a week or anything like that. So, but it's just really hard. Again, I said that earlier in my podcast. I love watching Asar play. He's not a good shooter, but he does so many things. He's fun. He's exciting. He makes things happen. He's a great defensive player, and the sad thing that we've lost is really a chance to get better. Just like last year, Cade played 12 games, and you can't get better unless you play. And then Monty didn't play Ivy a lot at the beginning, and Ivy's struggling now. But then Asar played a lot, then he didn't play a lot. But our core four haven't got to play much together. And then there's injuries. So again, there's that thing with Stu. Stu has been injured. He's played 46 games this year. He played only 50 games last year. And so is that a trend, or is that something that's going to continue to happen? But comparing Cade to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is by most people to be the number 2 in running for the MVP. Okay, he's that good, and he was first team All NBA last year. He's going to be first team All NBA this year. So a great player, undeniable. But here's Shai. He's 22 years old. In 2020-2021 season, he averaged 23 points, 23.7 points, which is about what Cade averages. 3 turnovers a game, which is about as much or more. He only averaged 4.7 assists, and Cade's this season is his 22-year-old season, and he's averaging 7.6 assists. And so you want to compare them, but here's the thing: they said Cade is no good because Cade loses. And so he can't be any good. Well, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander didn't do as bad as Cade, his team's doing, but he had better players. And so but they were 22 and 50. So therefore you're going to say Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is no good. He's 22. He's not going to be any good because he's 22 and 50. The next year, which would be Cade's 23 year, next year, he was averaged 24.5 points. So he's gotten better every year. 5.9 assists, which was up from the year before, but 24 and 58. They were no good. They were no good. And does that mean Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is no good? No. And then his 24 year, he broke out on that season, and he averaged 31.4 points and 5.5 assists and only 2.8 turnovers. And his team jumped up last year to 40 and 42. Big jump. So Cade's 2 years away from that. And then this year, he's 25, 30.9 points, and his assists jumped up to 6.3, which are still lower than Cade by quite a bit. And then they're 47 and 20, though, and they're loaded with talent, though. So they've done a better job. They got lucky in the lottery and jumped up, but we drop back twice. They jump up. They get lucky. They hit a home run with Jalen Williams. They hit a home run with Chet, which was, a lot of people may have got Chet, but not a lot of people would have got, Jalen Williams went later, and plays like an all-star. But anyway, the point is that you can't say Cade is no good because his team's crappy. And, unless you're going to say Shai Gilgeous was no good, and that he's still no good because, his team was crappy when he was 22 years old, and that he didn't have a lot of talent around him. Are you going to say Victor Wembanyama is the most amazing rookie I've ever seen in my lifetime. And I mean, Kareem was really good, and LeBron was really good. Magic won the world championship, but guess what? Magic played with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and James Worthy and a bunch of really good guys. And I love Magic, and I have Magic on one of my top 5 players of all time. But Victor's won 15 games. He's terrorizing the league. He's playing so well, but his team's crappy. So the guy that said it in my comments that Cade's no good because he's losing, well, it's not right. Victor's won 15 games this year. So anyway, we signed Shemazi Metu to a 10-day contract. He's 26 years old, 6'9". He didn't look that great tonight to me, but he's a 5-year vet. He's bounced around on a bunch of teams, and we just got to pick up somebody. So they picked him up before they announced that Stu and Asar are out for the year, because obviously we need some big body to fill in those spots. So yeah, he played for the Spurs and Kings and Suns, and he had 1 year where he played 20 minutes a game and averaged like 9 points a game. So he doesn't look like he's that fluid or whatever, but maybe he'll come and play hard. But we just need guys to play minutes at this point. So yeah, but Toussaint Moi, he played 28 minutes, 3 points. He looked good. He's pretty athletic, and he played hard. And so he was 3 for 6. Ironically, him and Umude both were 3 for 6. So, but he scored 9 points, and he looked pretty good. Duran only played 27 minutes, and he was 3 for 8, but he's 5 for 6 from the line. And he had 2 turnovers and 11 points, excuse me. So, but Cade, let's get back to Cade. Cade, again, he got blitzed, trapped, and fouled, and he played 29 minutes. He ended up being only 9 for 22, and he's 0 for 2 from threes and 5 for 6 from the line. 6 rebounds, 10 assists. So he had a decent game, and I'm not going to go over the rest of the box score. Some people said don't go over the box score, but I do think when I go over through the box score, it lets me talk about each player and kind of give a feeling of where they're at in the process. One thing I can say, the Pistons, they said were on the thing, were number 2 in the NBA in dunks. And I said on a podcast before the season started that our team was going to be one of the highest dunking teams in the league. So I was right about one thing at least. So yeah, and obviously Duran is among the league leaders in dunks. So anyway, thank you for listening, and we're going to be back at it. We play the Celtics. And so the Celtics, they're not just the best team and have by far the best record in the NBA. They are historically having one of the best years where their point differential, they're pounding people. They're pounding everybody in the league. And now they're playing, like I said, look at that roster that we're playing. How many players are NBA rotation players? Maybe Cade, Duran, Ivy, and I guess you could say on a bad team, Wiseman could be a backup, and Sasser has potential. After that, there's not an NBA player that is going to be playing Friday night against, even if Boston's missing players, they still got guys that would be considered all NBA players. So that's going to be tough. And then we got to turn around, and we got a tough little stretch there where we got to play we play the Pelicans on Sunday, and then we got to play back-to-back on Monday and go to New York and play the Knicks. So it doesn't just get any easier for our Pistons. So anyway, you can get joy in watching when guys play good, but it's just a disappointment. It is a major disappointment. The season's been a disappointment. All these injuries have been a disappointment. I was looking forward to, at least I was hoping to get to see Cade and Ivy and Asar and Duran and Fontecchio and Stu and Grimes all play together, and Sasser, and it just hasn't happened. And so it's just really disappointing. But thank you for listening. I hope you keep listening. I hope we go through this struggle together. I hope things turn around for us, and we get that draft pick, and we get some free agents or trades, and be the reason that somebody feels heard and loved. And go Pistons.